Welcome to another episode of Gold Medal Mixing Podcast. I'm Brittney Reese, and today's guest we have the one and only Mark Pryor. He was my agent when I was from 2008 all the way up until I retired. He went to Syracuse, ran track, ran the 800. Now he's still doing the same thing, still managing some great athletes out here. And we want to welcome him onto the podcast. Thank you, Mark Pryor, for coming on today.
No problem, honey. All the time, all the time. So when I saw the things that Brittney was doing with the podcast and all this stuff, I was so happy for it. I love all the stuff that's going on in Eugene because while she was competing, we couldn't do any of this stuff. You know, somebody asked me, they said, well, we see all this stuff going on. Where was this before? I said, look, we had to focus on winning and getting medals, and there's no way you could do all this at the same time and do a podcast and host people and make events and appearances. So I'm so supportive and so happy that this is getting done. I see all the sponsors involved with this. I'm happy about that. I see everybody getting the love and getting the communication together, and her bringing attention to the long jump and the field events is beautiful, because that's what's missing in track and field.
Yes.
Love what Michael Johnson is doing, but again, there was no field events involved with it. So hopefully Brittney can get some attention to it, get some people involved with it. You know, we can get the jumps and the throws community together so they can create their own, you know, events and their own support from it. So I'm excited to be here. And because I'm here, I had to make sure I wear my own specialized B. Reese t-shirt that we put together when she was competing. So I had to make sure I come support my girl. So make sure y'all go out and get one. I got this one, and I got a hoodie, and I got some other stuff too. So I always wear my B. Reese gear.
Yeah, you got to catch it on what, Millions? I think it's millions.com.
That's right. So I see you got your Ole Miss stuff on.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to always rep Ole Miss.
She reps Ole Miss, I rep Syracuse, so hey.
It don't matter what it is. We gonna
and whenever Ole Miss and Syracuse play, we go at each other.
We go at it.
I think I owe you a dinner though.
You do.
I do. Ole Miss beat Syracuse one time in basketball, so I do owe her a dinner. We always bet on it.
You know,
but I'm going to get my win from Jeremy because he went to Wisconsin and Syracuse beat the brakes off of Wisconsin. So we go all out together at one time, right? Yeah, exactly. I can just rotate the price and everything. So what do you want to talk about today, honey?
So let's start out with the Michael Johnson thing since we already brought it up.
Okay.
So how do you feel about the whole plan and the whole program and how he's running it and things like that?
So what I think is Michael Johnson is trying to fill a need that track and field has to get more exposure, to get more sponsorship, not just from the World Athletics or from Europe. So if you don't follow track and field, you realize that the new ranking system is basically based on all the European events. So the college meets are ranked so low that if you're in college and you run fast, you only get a little bit of meets, or a little bit of points, excuse me. But if you go to a European meet and you don't even run as fast, or you just win, you'll get more points than if you win a college meet. So I think Michael Johnson saw a need to make sure there's some equity in track and field, because again, it's basically based in Europe, it's run by Europeans, so he's trying to make sure that we have something here in the US, and I think that's well needed. So I applaud him for that. I wish it was a little more inclusive, like I said, about the throws and the jumps. You know, Ryan Krause, of course, is the face of the shot put, so you know, I wish that he could have got a shot put together. You know, Brittney used to be the face of the long jump, so he could have used her to be ambassador, you know, to pick the right jump. So again, it's tough, but I applaud it. I know he's got a lot of attention going on because, again, of his name and his popularity and everything. So I hope it comes off. He gave it a year and a half to promote it. I think that was a good idea. He's trying to get sponsors behind it, so I think that's good. So hopefully, if he can get some sponsors behind it, then at that point, maybe you all can go to him and say, hey, can we add the field events in this event?
Yeah, because that's what it was kind of like. It was, you know, Michael Johnson has his thing, and then Gabby, you know, Thomas teamed up with Serena's husband for her thing. Okay. And then we got the World Athletics now saying they want to pay, you know, more money for another meet. So it's to a point where as soon as I saw what Michael Johnson did, I was like, you know what, I text my manager and I was like, how can we implement something for field events? Because it's like sprinters get money, they get paid. You know,
it's no question. Oh yeah.
So I mean, and then the top sprinters and hurlers and distance runners, they're going to get theirs.
Yep.
And again, field events get left out. And I read a tweet where he was, you know, not coming at, but he was like directing his message to Marquise. And basically he was saying field events need to get together and get their own thing.
Ah, I see.
So
Marquise Goodwin plays football in the NFL right now. He also long jumped and made the Olympics. And he's a proponent of the jumps because that was his thing.
Yeah.
So, he was trying to say, hey, what's up with the field events? So, but again, what athletes and college athletes in particular have to realize, there's not a lot of equity in track and field. Like you said, the 100 sprinters, they get paid regardless because it's built around speed.
Yeah.
Speed is universal. They got speed in football. Tyreek Hill, he ran, track in college. Shout out to him. I love to see him do his thing, cheetah with the Dolphins. Basketball has their speed. Football, they run the 40. So you can get paid. You don't even have to be a big player or a nice player, but if you run a stupid time or crazy fast time in the 40, you can get paid. So speed is universal, which is why a lot of times everybody wants to see the 100 and the 400, things like that. There's speed in the field events, only the long jump, but not so much in the pole vault or the throws or or anything like that. So it kind of hurts that event, and that's what athletes have to understand. I talked to a couple of athletes that I'm talking to about representing. And they said, well, I won NCs, I should get paid. And I said, but you're not in the right event. It's different, and it's a shame. But again, the other lesson that athletes have to learn is that you can earn your money by your performance. It's great to get paid up front, but shoe companies have no problem paying for you if you perform. That's the key to this whole thing, performance. Nobody would care about this woman's podcast, what she's doing, anything, if she didn't have medals. 9 world medals. I was there for every last one of them, okay? And we focused on that, and we didn't get sidetracked by anything else because we knew that performance was the key. That's what you got to realize in the athlete. Whether you're in football, basketball, anything, performance is key. You got to take care of what you do on the court, on the field, in the track, or whatever, before you can start trying to market yourself or do anything else. Because again, that's what drives people to follow you.
And I laugh about that because I remember a time we was overseas. And I'm on the table getting adjusted or whatever, I'm getting stretched, and all the European athletes are staring at me, and you was like, yeah, they mad you getting paid.
Yeah. So that's funny. That's one thing. I remember I went to Mississippi and I talked to Brittney's high school basketball coach, and he says, if she gets mad, she gonna perform well. So I said, okay. So that's one of the secrets to me and us, our success. Not just because she's talented and because she works hard, but also I used to do little things to make her mad. So sometimes I'd play little games. I told a little lie and say, hey, this person was talking crazy about you in the warm-up area, so let's make sure we let them have it today. She was like, okay. So, but that one time we were in Europe, the Russians and the Ukrainians, we walked into the warm-up area and they were looking at us, and I asked one of my buddies who manages them, I said, why do they hate us? So he said, because they know that you're going to win and you guys get paid, and now you're taking away from them. And I said, well, they got to improve. They got to get better. So yeah, it's different. You got to make sure you take care of your performance. You got to make sure you practice, do whatever you can. The other thing I remember I wanted to mention was that people always ask me, what makes you so great, or what drove you to do all the things that you did? And I tell them one thing. I said, failure breeds success, okay? You shouldn't be afraid to fail, because failure and adversity makes you succeed. And I will never forget the first year that we were together in 2008, and it was the Beijing Olympics. It was your first year out of college. You made the finals. You had one of the top jumps in the world. And the day of the final, I said, hey, how we feeling? You was like, I'm done. I got no more. And I said, honey, come on. You said, my legs is dead. I have no more. I said, one more. She said, I got nothing. And we ended up getting 5th place. Got moved up, I think, because somebody tested positive, so she ended up getting 4th. But after that time, she said, I never want to feel that way again. That was the adversity and the failure that she felt. And from then on, we got a medal for like 5-6 years. 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013. Read it if you don't know. Wikipedia, look her up. What did it say? Google me.
Google me.
Right. Google her to make sure if you don't see the dominance that this woman had in track and field. And I'm proud to say, to me, she's the most decorated athlete in track and field, because there's no relay medals. Nobody's fighting for the 4x1 and the 4x4 spot. She did all hers in an individual event. So I think that should be accounted for as well. But, hey, everybody has their own little thing to do. So
they do.
But yeah, so, got to take care of performance. and you got to make sure you don't make yourself too comfortable. You know, I see athletes that get paid a lot of money and then all of a sudden they relax. Oh, I'm good now. But now your performance doesn't work well because you don't have anything to fight through or any adversity. So you got to keep yourself uncomfortable. I'm not saying you can't relax and enjoy it after a certain time, but you still got to work hard. You got to make sure that you're fighting against something to keep you sharp. And that's basically what this woman did during her whole career. She made sure that she would stay sharp.
Then with contracts, you gotta, you know, being an agent, you've been able to put together pretty hundreds of contracts for athletes. Talk to us about how that comes about, and like, you know, I know some contracts have like reductions and things like that. So talk to us a little bit about how the process of getting a contract and all that type of stuff.
So one of the things I try to tell young college athletes is that when you're choosing an agent, you're not paying for the agent who they currently represent. Because too many times a lot of athletes say, oh, I'm gonna sign with this person because they got 20 athletes or they got this and they got that. That has nothing to do with you personally. I remember when I was trying to sign Brittney and she had interviews and it was with her coach, and I think it was 3 guys, and I asked for the last spot. I said, I want to be 3rd. And so before that, I did my homework and I researched and I looked at the results of the Olympics and I looked at what other long jumpers were earning. I called shoe companies before I met with her and I asked them, you know, about where we're at. And so when I went in, and they asked me the question, which all athletes want to ask, how much am I worth? How much do you think I can get? And I said, honestly, this is what you can get. And I know it was a lot less than what all these other agents were saying, because all these other agents are going to tell you this big number of what you want to hear as opposed to the truth. So the way I do my business is I try to be honest with the athletes, because I think that's the way people need to be. That's the best way you run a business, is to be honest. If this is where you're at, this is where we're at. Now, in the question you asked about how to structure a contract, knowing that you were that good and that you couldn't get a big base in the beginning, what I did was make sure that she got paid for every little thing she achieved. So for instance, when she got to Olympics games, when she made the finals of Olympic games, she got paid for that. That was a bonus. When she jumped a certain distance, she got paid for that. That was a bonus. Getting ranked in the US and getting the world, paid for that. So if you make sure that, again, like I said, shoe companies don't mind paying for performance if you earn it. You have to just make sure you cover every little thing in there. So going to Europe was another bonus, to make sure we jumped in 6 meets in Europe. That was a bonus. Making sure that you were seen on TV and that you wore your sponsor's gear, that was another bonus. So all the things that you did as an athlete, I made sure was in the contract. Now, as you said, the higher you get, the more ways they can find out how to get their money back. So there's something in track and field called a reduction. And I don't want to say who the person is that started this. So this one guy, he got an Olympic medal and he got this big contract, and then he did nothing for like 3 years. And they had to pay him all 4 years. So now shoe company said, man, we got to build in some way to protect ourselves. So it's called a reduction. But the higher your base salary, the higher your reduction can be. So if you're making, say, 1.5 million or, $2 million, if you're not ranked, say, top 3 or top 5 in the world, then your salary can go down to $500,000. That's how to get it. Now, if you're only making, say, $40,000 or $50,000, well, then the reduction will be 5% or 10%, no big deal. Yeah. So athletes have to understand that if you get to a high level of terms of your pay, then if you don't perform at a certain level, they can take that money back, and that's where it comes in at. So you got to be careful what you ask for. So, I know some athletes, they get upset when they're like, well, I bought this house and I did all these things and I got this car. But then when you don't perform and you get reduced, now you get mad at the shoe company. You can't get mad at the shoe company. You get mad at yourself because you didn't perform right. So you got to keep that in mind. Track athletes got to understand that this thing is based on your performance, not your good looks, not who you are, but what you do on the track. So that's one thing they got to realize. So I can honestly say that Brittney was one of the highest paid, if probably is to this day, the highest paid long jumper ever, because again, she got the 9 medals. That's it. Every time she got paid, her sponsor would call me and say, how much you get us for today? I was like, yeah. And every time she got a medal, they had to add that value to her base salary. So you do the math, ladies and gentlemen. 9 times medals, whatever you want to say, that's where we were at. So again, she realized that. She learned that early. We talked about that before I signed her. I said, hey, you're not going to get any money, big money up front, but everywhere you do, every time you get a medal, you can add to it and earn to it, and that's exactly what she did. So that was her motivation. So again, that's why she got so many medals, because she knew that's how I need to make my money. Not out here with the followers and this and that and so forth, you know?
Yep, and that's that field events is probably have the most challenging part of getting a contract.
Yep.
You know, sprinters that you run the time, they kind of, you know, calculate what you kind of worth and what they think you can do. But like, far as like field events, they be ready to give you some gear and be like, oh, here's so and so. This and
unfortunately,
you know,
athletes are so happy to ship the free shoes and the gear, and they want to just call themselves professional, but the gear and the shoes don't pay the bills. You know, so I try to tell athletes, don't be so in a hurry to put a uniform on without getting paid, or at least have something in place where you can get paid. You know what I'm saying? Because all you're doing is a walking billboard. You're giving them free advertising. And so what's the impediments for them to pay you? We already got what we got out of you, so we don't have to pay you. You're already wearing the stuff, so we good. You know, so, you know, track and field, I just wish the athletes would stick together more. Unfortunately, there's no union where you guys need to really come together and say, hey, we need to do more for the field events because there's inequity. They're not getting paid. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of the things that I wish would change in track and field. So that's why I'm glad that see you doing these things, being an ambassador and trying to bring attention to it.
Yeah, and in the field events, we make up a lot of the medals.
Oh, no question. No question about it.
And we're going to probably do it again because, you know, Joe and all them and Sam and the...
Every time they had that medal count in the U.S., you could count at least 15 medals from the field events. Pole vault, long jump, shot put, high jump, like you said.
And women's discus.
Exactly, women's discus, the women's hammer.
Women's hammer.
Yep.
We got it all now, and it's still like, oh, y'all not on TV enough, so.
Right.
And
but that's not their fault.
Excuse. And that's the excuse that they give and been given for years since I've been, you know, professional. Is you're not on TV enough. Well, then find a way to put us on TV enough to where, you know, because you can't inspire the next generation of long jumpers, you know, shot putters and discus if we're not on TV so those kids can see us.
Correct.
So, it's tough. You just got to find ways, and that's why we're going to look deeper after this, you know, and see how we can figure something out for field events. And, you know.
I know one of the things you mentioned was a beach jump, and I think that's a great idea because you got the sand involved with it. So something like doing, you know, a beach jump in Miami, maybe in San Diego, where you trained at, you know, not too many beaches in New York, but, you know, a beach jump where people can come, enjoy it, see the distance that these guys are covering. I mean, when you see those long jumpers, I was watching the men's long jump, and it wasn't as touted as I liked it to be, but if you go back and watch some of the videos of Carl Lewis and Leroy Burrell and Mike Powell and them jumping 860 and 850. I was like, and these are grown men who are 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", and these guys are athletes. And they were jumping out of the box. I remember Milrose Games in New York City, Carl Lewis jumped out of the pit. He has the world record in the long jump, and the pit was too short, and he jumped on the edge of the pit and had to stand up and step out of the pit. That's how far he was jumping indoors, which is why they don't have the indoors too much, long jump indoors. Because the pits aren't, there's not enough room inside to put the pits for them to jump. So, so jumping, it can be fun. There's some aspects to it that can be, you know, harped on and focused on. So I'm hoping that we can kind of help that along.
We was thinking, you know how we went to Berlin and we had Team USA and things like that. And we was thinking also the thing we did at Drake, jump per round, money per round.
Yes.
We thought about stuff like that. So we've been throwing out ideas and trying to figure out how we can, you know, get the field athletes paid, because we can kind of do that for shot put. You can do that for this.
Yeah. That event that they had and like she was saying, it's called Berlin Fleet, which in German is called Berlin Flies. And so they had the long jump, the pole vault, and the 60 or the 100.
The last one we did, they did it the 60. I think it was the 60.
And so they had it in the middle, right near the Brandenburg Gate, which divided West Germany from East Germany. And then they had all the different countries, but in that certain spot, they had the consulates for the U.S., for Germany, for Russia, for France. So all the people came down and support their country, and it was a great idea.
Yeah.
We had fun with that. That was one of the best events. And it just focused on the long jump, the pole vault, and the 100 or the 60, and that was it. And it was great. And you had 3 athletes, and every round, each athlete got certain points on if they won their contest or won that round. Yep. So it didn't really matter, and it was great. Everybody in Germany loved it. It was on live TV. Everybody was there. We had all the nationwide countries and all the national colors in the uniform and everything. And it was always after the Olympics. So it was always the Olympians or people who represented their country at the Olympics. And it was a great idea. I loved it. I wish they could have did that in the U.S.
I wish that we could do something like that. It probably could be. We could like rotate, honestly.
Yep.
Each country.
Yep.
But did you see how Las Vegas is starting to build a $1.2 billion?
I saw that.
What you think about that?
Well, I think that ties into the sports betting. Which is something that everybody should, they still have sports betting in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, we went and I remember seeing it on the
That's right.
screen.
So we went to Zurich, and in Switzerland they do sports betting, and they have a card and they have athletes on there and have odds for what you can bet on certain events. And so I remember, now as an agent, I technically can't bet on sports, but I was looking in, and the odds for Brittney winning the long jump were kind of high, and I was like, ooh, I should bet on it. But if I had won, I couldn't take the money. So, but again, in Europe, they have been doing that thing. So I was glad to see that Las Vegas is getting into track and trying to tie in their sports thing. So
yeah, and I feel like that'll be, if it's structured right, because you got to figure out a way that athletes can get some kind of money off of this.
Right.
Because they're going to make some money off of sports betting, because it's now, sports betting has evolved, and people
and track and field is grassroots. Everybody has run track and field. Everybody has run cross country. It could relate to any level. You got guys in the stock market who ran track. They might not have run as fast, but they still ran track.
They ran something.
Everybody in their life has run a 4x4. Whether they wanted it or not, everybody has their horror story about a 4x4. When their coach tagged them, Coach tagged them and said, hey, we need you to run a 4x4. Everybody's run cross country. Well, I'm sure after they run the race, they're like, I quit. I don't want to do this no more. Yeah, I remember you were telling me about that.
Yeah, I quit.
So track and field can relate to all the different, age groups and all the different genres and everything. So I'm glad to see Vegas is getting involved with that. I hope, like I said, the athletes understand that. And so if they have an event, they want to go to it and support it to make sure it gets on there. Because, every sport goes to Vegas to create their buzz. Yeah. Boxing, what is it, the MMA? Mm-hmm.
Football now got their football team.
Yeah, all that stuff. They got the Aces, the Las Vegas Aces with the WNBA. I know football now, the Raiders, they moved to Las Vegas. So every sport is sport. Formula One now, they did it. Yep, because a buddy of mine went to Syracuse. Shout out to my man Ken Miller. He went to Vegas and he got a special VIP thing for the Formula One in Vegas. And he had his little product that he was pushing. And he was like, look, man, I got to go to Vegas for this event. I was like, I'm with you. I'm mad with it. So yeah, Vegas, this is a great move for track and field.
I agree.
Yep, and I hope they get behind it. I hope USA Track and Field is smart, because they have a way of always putting their little string holes on things and little stuff. I hope they say, hey, let's do this and let's let this thing run. So,
and that again, that money need to come back to the athletes some type of way.
Yes.
Some type of way besides just, even if it's into prize money, it's into something like a stipend.
Right.
That for top athletes, they got to figure it out.
But again, the athletes got to stick together.
I agree.
They got to stick together. I remember back in when I first became an agent, we were in Europe and they sitting around the lobby because you got some free time in between events. And one of the athletes asked me, so what do you think, how can we help track and field? And I said, well, one is y'all don't have no cohesiveness. Y'all don't stick together. You need a union. And I gave an example. I said, and I'm saying this because we're at the Olympic trials now. What if on the first day of the Olympic trials, all the athletes came into the stadium and sat down and said, we're not competing until you pay us? Think about that. Now you got all the TV, all the media, NBC, all the television crews, everybody has paid flights and hotels and everything, and all the athletes said, we're not competing until you decide to pay everybody. I guarantee you within 2 hours, they come up with some kind of deal because they can't waste all that money. And I'll give you a perfect example. The United States women's hockey team, ice hockey team, did that. They were supposed to go to the World Championships in Sweden, and before they got in the plane, they all sat down at the airport and said, we're not going nowhere until you pay us, because the men's hockey team was getting paid all this crazy money, and the men's hockey team is horrible. Like, they don't really do anything. And so the women, like, why do they get paid, I'm just saying $10,000, and we only get paid $1,000? And they said, until you come up with a deal, we're not going nowhere. And within 3 hours, they had it, because they had everything booked for them, and they had them supposed to show up. And when they said one show up, they had to do something. So they made a handshake deal, and they wrote some terms down, and they said, we'll finalize it after the competition. And that's why the women's U.S. ice hockey team is getting paid now.
See?
And I think the U.S. women's soccer team went to court. Yeah, and they won they won their case to get paid because the men were getting paid.
And they ain't even that good.
Oh no, the men are horrible. Well, not horrible, but the men aren't as successful as the women. The women have won so many World Cups and so many Olympic Games and all this stuff, and the men don't win too much, but yet you don't have any equity in payment. Yeah. So, yep. So I think that's what needs to happen first before anything. Everybody got to stick together in track and field. You know.
I'm with you on that. So we in this new era now with the NIL. Does that affect anything of like with you being an agent or anything like that? So how do you feel about the new direction that we're going with track and field, not track sports?
The one thing I try to tell people about NIL is it's not a nationwide thing. It's run by each state. Everybody has to understand that. Each state has their own separate rules for NIL. So the states that you want to be in, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, California, those NIL deals are great. The states are like, yes, you can do whatever you want to do. We have no problem with it. It's perfect. Other states like New York State, not so much. Maryland, not so much. So what athletes have to understand is that depending on where they're at, that NIL could be different for them. Okay, a lot of NIL deals deal with product, apparel and shoes. Unfortunately, you can't pay bills with a pair of shoes or apparel. So kids got to realize, hey, mom and dad got bills. They're traveling. You know, the AAU circuit, that gets expensive, flying and having the kids and all that good stuff. So they got to understand that, hey, before we talk about you branding me, because that's basically what this NIL thing is, you're branding the athletes. Before you talk about that, let's talk about how much I'm going to get paid and how much I'm helping the brand through all this marketing that I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? So, again, one of the difficulties in NIL is that if you have an agent as a high school athlete, you have to be careful of their eligibility. Yeah. So that's one of the things. NIL is not so much where people can make a lot of money yet, which is why you don't see a lot of agents specializing in NIL because you can't monetize it that much yet. Some you can. Now, shoe companies have gotten smart and they say, well, we'll give you an NIL deal while you're in college. Now that's the way to get paid, but you got to be careful of the language in the contract and make sure that you don't prevent yourself from getting anything else. Because once you do wear that sponsor's apparel or anything, now when you graduate college or when you turn pro, you're basically going to be negotiating with that brand. You're not going to be out there negotiating with anybody else because you've already been branded. Right. So that's the one thing they got to understand. I think NIL is a great thing to help people take advantage of their success early on, but they just got to be smart about it. And again, it depends on your state. So what I'm saying is do your homework, contact your state sports association for high school, read about the NIL, get the bylaws, get the language involved with it so you can understand what you can do and what you can't do, because there's a lot of different things you can't do in NIL. But if you live in California or Texas or Oklahoma, oh, you good money. You getting paid, baby. Listen, if I could move, I would, but I can't. But listen, if you're in those states, oh, it's beautiful. I'm not gonna say it's the Wild Wild West, but it kind of is.
It is.
You know,
I saw some deals for like football players.
Yes. Oh, the state of Oregon too, by the way. Oh yeah. They're doing it here in the state of Oregon.
Yeah. See what I'm saying?
Yep. Yeah.
Man, them kids, I'm like, y'all millionaire before y'all even throw a football, or make a touchdown, anything.
But you got to keep in mind, those states have those Power 5 schools and those Power 5 conferences. So that's why, and that's what it's tied into. I always tell athletes, you want to be sponsored, but what are you bringing to the sponsor? You know what I'm saying? What do you have other than maybe your good looks, but where does your performance rank? You know, just because you're NCAA champion doesn't mean the brand or the product is going to sell, because that's an NCAA thing. It's not a global thing. So, you know, what do you have globally that can help them sell their product in all different areas of the country or wherever? You know, I remember when you first came out, remember we were passing out the Reese's Cup. And everybody loved that. They was, oh man, that's a good idea. And I said, yeah, because we're trying to get sponsors. I remember, again, we tried to do the t-shirt to get people to get it out there. You know, I did with the sponsors you had, they gave us shirts and we put Team Reese on it. And what I did was I gave out t-shirts only in the long jump section for Team Reese, and I gave it to Jackie Joyner Kersey and other people, and they had it. So when we were jumping, I think that was in 2012. Yeah, 2012. So everybody had the Team Reese shirt on. So that was something we could do too. So yeah. So there's opportunities out there, but again, you got to make sure you take care of your performance.
Yep.
So.
Okay, we're gonna switch sides. So you had something to do with and one a little bit, huh?
I did. So, so my first venture as an agent, I represented several athletes in the N1 mixtape tour. So I'm from New York City, if you can't tell. I don't know if you can hear the accent. Shout out to my boy, Bernard Williams. He has his own little podcast. He always does that little noise. And he always talks about me being from New York, and he loves my accent. So my little brothers and everything, they play basketball. And as you know, in New York, basketball is king. You know, you can play it outside, the summer leagues, all that good stuff. And so in New York, everything is flash and dash. You know, everybody has their own little tricks that they do. And, you know, everybody shows up at the basketball court outside. And it's a great thing. If you've never been to New York to go to a summer league basketball game, you should do it. When you talk about grassroots and social media, if they had social media back then, street basketball, streetwise basketball, oh man, it would have took off. It would have killed the game. So I was at home one weekend, and these guys were out there talking, and they were saying, "Oh yeah, N1, N1, N1," and N1 was doing different little tournaments and games in different cities. They were in Philly, they were doing New York, New Jersey, and it was mostly just in those areas. And N1 is a Pennsylvania company, Philadelphia company. So when I was talking to the guys, I said, "Oh, that sounds good." And then they had a mixtape. And so what N1 did was they gave away the mixtape with the sale of their apparel. So if you buy a shirt, you get a mixtape. If you buy a pair of shoes, you get a mixtape. So lo and behold, everybody started talking about this mixtape. They was like, "Yo, man, you see this N1 mixtape? You see this mixtape?" And all these guys were doing these tricks, and they were making people fall. And then what N1 did was they got with the local DJs in New York City, and they meshed the music on top of the mixtape. So now you have a mixtape with the hot hip hop songs, and some of them that hadn't come out yet, and some of the rappers that they didn't know, but they put their music to the mixtape, and it was the next thing but sliced bread. Okay, so all the athletes that they were using, I said, one question: did you get paid for that? And they said no. I said, well, what's up? They got your image, they got the footage, they got your wearing the gear. Well, they gave us free shoes and they gave us all the gear and everything. And I said, again, shoes and gear don't pay the bills. I said, where is the money at? So I said, well, we didn't know. So I signed two of the N1 guys, and I called N1 and I said, hey, you using these guys' name and likeness. This is before NIL now. You using these guys' name and likeness. You getting all this product bought from the mixtape, but they're not getting anything off of it. They didn't get any residuals from the mixtape, from the sale, for anything. And I said, we need to change that. So after a while, N1 at first said, no, maybe. And then all the players started getting hip to it, and they were like, yeah, we need to get together. So I was instrumental in negotiating a sponsorship contract for the N1 guys. Now, basketball players, not like track and field, you don't necessarily have to take care of your body to play basketball. You can do all different things. Yeah. So these guys didn't really change their lifestyle to be sponsored. And so it was great. It didn't last very long, but it gave me an insight on what to do in terms of athletes and representation. And it got me in the door, and I had a good time on the N1 mixtape tour. We went to different cities, so expanded to Atlanta. They went to Las Vegas. They went to Oregon. They were out here in Portland, actually. One of the guys, a professor, they picked up. One of the things, though, that I didn't like about the N1 mixtape tour is they instilled this new thing where they said, every city we go to, we want the players to pick somebody that can come to the tour. And so I told the guys, I said, don't do this. And they said, why? I said, because you're picking your replacement. Why would you pick the guys that can do your tricks? Because then when they don't need you, they got somebody right there. And they said, oh no, this is a good idea, and so forth and so on. And sure enough, couple of the guys that I represented, he got kicked off the tour because he was doing this, and they said, and they brought this guy in, and then they got this guy named Spider and all this stuff. And before you knew it, the original N1 guys got phased out, and they brought in all the new guys. So again, remember that. Never pick your replacement. Anybody asks you who's hot out there, you say, me, I'm hot. That's the only people you need to focus on, me. I don't want to be out there with anybody else. Can you appreciate what they do? Yes, you can. but keep it in house. Don't play yourself. But I had a great time with N1. It was a great lesson in terms of endorsement. It was a great lesson in terms of how you got to prepare your athletes. Because again, once you become sponsored, you got to carry yourself in a different light. You know what I'm saying? So you can't necessarily go out there and act a fool because you represent now the brand. So you got to make sure you're doing it in the light. And N1 was smart because they put that in the contract. So some of them guys that didn't act right, they were like, oh, you got to go, and they moved them on and so forth and so on. But it was a good time. I had a good time with it. They had a documentary on N1, and of course they didn't mention me because N1 don't want to bring any light to, hey, this guy got athletes paid, because it is what it is. But N1 did a great job with the tour. Those guys who started N1, they were like 2 college guys, and they started the business, and I thought it was great the way it built, they built it and everything. And again, I would love for somebody to do that in track and field, to help something. I see they got some new running shoes, On Running, which is out of Switzerland, so they're doing a good job. And we need that because that gives the track athletes more options to get paid. That's one of the reasons that track athletes is hard to get paid, because you really only have a couple of options in terms of sponsorship. There's only a few shoe companies that are involved with sponsoring athletes, so it's kind of tough. There is no negotiating power if you only got 1 or 2 people that can really pay you. So, and
that's true. And I'm starting to see like a lot more athletes. Like we had Quenisha Burks on here, and she's with Free People, I think it is. And that's a whole nother brands that she done tapped into, which I told her I was real proud of, because you didn't settle. Because I mean, some of the bigger brands were coming after her, but they was like, we're gonna give you this amount of money. And she was like, nah, I'm gonna just do my own thing.
I'm glad she finally got smart, because I remember you called me about her.
And she figured it out, and she doing her own thing, and she loving it, and it's up her alley. So I feel like more athletes gonna have to branch out into these other companies, and whether they shoe companies or not, who's to say you can't come out here running somebody else's top?
Oh, no question.
Paying you. So I mean, you're just not gonna have their shoes on.
You got to do your homework though, because there are restrictions on the size of the logo that could be on the uniform. So I know in Europe there's a different set of rules because they have clubs, so you can have different sponsors on your bib. I mean, on your uniform. But here in the U.S., the USATF, they got it locked down. So the logo can only be a certain size. If you notice, there is no college athlete that wears their college uniform in Europe because the logos are too big. You can't have that big O in Europe on TV. They don't allow that. So you got to remember that there's some rule restrictions on that, So, and then the other thing is, if you don't sign a contract with a shoe company, you are not sponsored. I don't care how much gear you get. I don't care how many shoes you get. I don't care how many socks or how many boxes they send you. Unless you sign, you are not sponsored. You can play sponsored all you want to, but it doesn't mean nothing until you sign that contract. I remember we had a couple of young ladies call us and asked me for help, and I tried to tell them that, So, that's something you got to, it happens in every sport, not just track and field, but it's just highlighted in track and field because there's more stories than anything else. Basketball don't happen so much because you have the NBA with a players union and collective bargaining and all these things. And remember, NBA salaries are public knowledge. The USA Today used to publish all the NBA salaries in the NBA. Same thing with the NFL. They got a collective bargaining. They got a players union. Same thing with the hockey. They got a collective bargaining. They got a players union. That's what they need in track and field. They need a players union. They need collective bargaining. They need to organize and get together, whether it be a union or not. Something has to be done to bring everybody together, because if you just work it individually, it's not going to happen. Everybody's going to get, everybody's not going to get a fair shake.
We're seeing it now.
Yeah, that's what happened with the truckers union. Everything. Before they had unions back then, people just working independent, they used to take advantage of them. And then they finally got together. So now you got the truckers, you got the steel workers, you got the shipyard. I mean, you got every job that you do has a union, because there's strength in numbers. And if all the track and field people got together as a union together and say, hey, we want more equity. Hey, the sprinters get paid, but also the throwers in the field events and whoever else. The hammer throw. Oh my God. The hammer throw is not even a part of the Diamond League. They don't even put the hammer throw in every Diamond League event. So those guys got their own little separate thing. Yeah, they don't get a fair shake, and the prize money is not the same as the Diamond League. So, again, they keep saying, they don't have enough attention and so forth and so on, but, still
not getting it to them,
has to be something done to that. Yep. So
not getting it to them.
Yep.
All right, so you got a couple of athletes. I know one of them is Monet.
Yes.
She jumps tonight. And,
yep. So she jumps tomorrow. Yep. Monet Nichols in the sponsored by Puma, by the way. Shout out to Puma. She's jumps in the long jump. I have been giving her all my wisdom and knowledge that I've learned from dealing with this young lady to try to help her be successful. So I'm happy about that. I can happily say that of the athletes that I've represented, every one of them has made the finals.
There we go.
And the only way you can make the team is to make the finals. So I had Jordan Geis, who's a good guy out of University of Arizona. He got, unfortunately, 4th place in the shot put, but he did a great job. He was actually in 3rd for 5 rounds, and then he got past in that 6th round. Yeah, so it was tough.
6th round.
But luckily for him, he throws the hammer, which is the qualifying today. So I'm hoping he gets a chance to make the team. Monet Nichols, like I said, is in the long jump. She's out of Texas Tech. I had a young man. So I'm not a person, I like to give people opportunities. And so there was a young man out of University of Texas A&M Commerce, which is D2. I believe they're D1 now, but they were D2 back then. So this guy won NCAA D2s in 100, the 2, and the 4x1. And he contacted me through Instagram. He said, hey, would you represent me? And I said, come on, my man, let's go. He made the finals of the 100 at the Olympic trials here. He ran 9.94. And so he's got about 5 or 6 meets in Europe now. So he's going to Europe after this to try to get his time going. Last year, he made the finals of the 100. He got 6th place, and he won a gold medal at the World Championships in the 4x1.
There we go.
And that's from this guy who's Division II. Yeah. So again, but his performance, he just didn't come here and say, hey, I'm D2 champ. He made the finals of the 100, and then he got 6th place, and they chose him for the relay.
There you go.
So JT Smith, that's my man. Shout out to him. He did well in the 100 this year, and at this Olympic trials. Jordan Geis, Monet Nichols. So I have a young man in the discus throw. It's funny because his dad was my teammate at Syracuse.
Wow.
And his dad was a 4-time Olympian. He used to win the discus every year at USA's, and he was world champion in Seville, Spain. I forget the year. So, I was following him, and Turner Washington, his name, he threw for Arizona State. He was NCAA champ, and because his dad did the discus and I was a teammate, I was following him. And so I was leaving the stadium last year, and I saw him, and I said, hey, congratulations, I knew your dad and everything. He said, yeah, my dad told me about you and everything. And he says, hey, would you help me? And I was like, you don't have an agent? He says, no. I said, done. I didn't even think about it. I was like, done. So I'm representing Turner Washington. He does some great things in the discus. I'm hoping he qualified last night for the finals. He's ranked 3rd, so top 3 is the key. So I'm hoping he does his thing. I also have Demarius Smith out of the University of Oklahoma. He does the 200. He runs in the semifinals this tonight on the 2. So I can honestly say that all my athletes have performed well. I'm happy about that. I don't, as you know, represent a whole lot of athletes because I don't believe everybody can get attention. If you got 60 athletes, there is no way in God's green earth I can give 60 people the attention they deserve. So, like I said, when you're choosing an agent, everybody's, oh, well, everybody's with him, but that doesn't mean everybody's getting the attention they need. So I try to make sure athletes try to talk to the person and get the attention they need. One of the things I know I did with you is I travel with my athletes, and that was big for you. And I promised you in that meeting that I would travel with you. And like I said, from day one, we went everywhere. Was it hard? Yes. But hey, because my kids were like, Daddy, where you at? I said, hey, I'm out with Brittney, and we're in this country, and it's okay. So my kids knew like I had a summer job. I would always leave in June, and I'd come back in September, and they knew that, well, Dad's gone for the summer job. And it's funny, my oldest son, he was at school one time and they saw us on TV at the Olympics, remember? And so the teacher said, what does your dad do? And he said, my dad works for the NSA and he traveled. And so the teacher, every time I came around, she kept whispering. And I said, why are you whispering while you talk to me? And she said, well, your son told me what you do. I said, no, I'm a sports agent. I work with Olympic athletes. She said, oh, he told me you work for the NSA. I said, no. He says, but I have like 3 passports. So he thought I was Ethan Hunt. And I have 3 or 4 different passports, and I was like, no, I don't work for NSA. So
that's funny.
But yeah, so I've been happy with my athletes. I really appreciate their hard work, their dedication. They came here to represent it, and so now it's my job to try to find them meets in Europe to keep them going. I've been out here talking to different sponsors to try to get them, deals. Those who don't have one, try to make sure they get some support. So it's been a good time. like I said, I'm happy to see all the things that you're doing with this because, you know, when we came out here, it was nothing.
It was nothing.
Right. You know, you just come out here to compete. If you make the team cool, you know, we would get together and have our own little party and, you know, own little dinner. But to have things like this and let the athletes see and have opportunities to be sponsored and get with different brands, this is beautiful. I love this. So
we sure appreciate it. And we definitely appreciate you coming on the Gold Medal Mixing Podcast.
Oh, no question. Remember that Gold Medal Mixing Podcast. Remember that. We got to get a T-shirt. So I can start wearing this. Yeah, we got, okay. My man Charles said he's on it already. That's what I'm talking about. That's why I banged with Charles Bascom. Shout out. Shout out to my man Charles. He's doing his thing. We're trying to bring this thing to another level. She has won a lot of medals. Again, it's why people want to get involved with it. So again, make sure you touch base with Brittney and Charles. They can help you out. And if you guys need some help, let me know and I'll be glad to have it. And hopefully we get together for this Olympics in 2028.
That's the goal. That's the goal.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, again, we appreciate you coming on. Make sure you follow us on X, Instagram, YouTube, all the major platforms. Thank you again.